Good day, everybody. Attorney Greg Lake here. Welcome to the Entheogenic Esquire podcast and YouTube channel. I hope everyone's having a great day today. I have my regulars here as normal. Susan, Lizard, Hoaxing. How are y'all doing today? Very grateful that y'all decided to show up and join us. As indicated, we're going to be discussing most part today. We're going to be talking about, and again, I think they might still even be going on with Pam Bondi, but I think I might have seen enough already. I for sure will go back and check the highlight reels this evening, and we'll show back up. I actually might skip a live tomorrow. I'll probably publish a video or two, but I think I'm going to skip the live tomorrow because and this is in all honesty. Hey, how you doing, Raining? Good to see you too. And just real quick, y'all, I think today, as far as format, because I'm going to be testing this out in the future, but I think what I'd like to do, if I'm going to be doing like pretty much daily lives, I'm thinking about doing it in the format where I'll post the announcement, and then I'll list maybe 3 or 4 bullets of like the topic of conversation, and then we'll show up and I'll start, I'll bring up these topics, say my piece, and then we'll be looking at the comments and, going into it and just kind of have a more interactive discussion during the course of it, right? Because most of the time I've been just waiting till the end and addressing the comments because I've been really, and maybe some lives will be that way, right? Where I do like a really thick outline and go point and discuss it, then do it. But I want to try this format out a bit today where I'm a little bit more interactive with the comments during the procession of the live. So we'll try that out. What else was I going to say? So I've been really looking into it's really strange. I guess I'll say this is that through all the Epstein stuff, as far as, DOJ filing charges, despite the fact, as we've seen, that they have alleged, themselves have alleged ever since the first prosecution back in 2007, that there have been co-conspirators. There have been people that Epstein trafficked to. Okay. Yet we've, again, still today, we've never seen a charge. And I'm really talking about the New York indictment in 2019 as well, which I read through. It mentions in there co-conspirators, people who are also involved in these types of acts, yet nowhere in there does it go and charge any other people with those acts. And so and I think what we're seeing play out right now in front of our face with this file, now that he's not with us anymore, at least as far as we know, or what we're told, now it's really, well, who are these other people? Because, we know, well, one, the DOJ has previously admitted to it, and federal courts have certainly recognized as a fact that E-Teen did, in fact, traffic girls to people other than himself. And I posted my video yesterday. I hope y'all liked it. I kept it real short, but just, really going over, Kash Patel's statements, right? I mean, the fact that, when you have the Justice Department, the Department of Justice, which the FBI is under, so like, Kash Patel is under Pam Bondi. The FBI is basically one of the investigatory bodies for the Department of Justice, right? And so if your own department, your boss, concludes in official filings and statements, and the courts later pick it up, that in fact, this fact, whatever it is, but here we're talking about, did Jeffrey Epstein, traffic to other girls, or I mean, to other co-conspirators, it's been established. And so for him to get up there and say, well, there's no credible information to suggest, I mean, let me know what your thoughts are. I mean, if it were up to you, just based on the fact that these court opinions and the DOJ's position has prior to this, said that, established that in their own view, looking at the evidence, I mean, is that enough to say, yeah, Kash Patel, you lied under oath? Because I know in the natural tendency, right, and I think even the legislatures are still kind of stuck in this too. The natural tendency is to try to look at this circumstantial kind of evidence coming out in the files, the emails, et cetera, to say that, oh, well, that's enough evidence, that right there. And true. Now, I agree that evidence for sure is enough credible evidence to certainly suggest that he was trafficking to other people. No doubt about it. But the reason why I advance these court filings and some of the other DOJ documents is just because, to me, that's you can't crawl out of that position, right? It's like there is no, how do we interpret this data? Like, no, the data has already been interpreted for you, Kash Patel, by your own Department of Justice, your boss, essentially, and as far back as 2007, right? So it's like this thing has been memorialized in the federal court record, this fact, since at least '07, right, or '08. And so I just wanted to bring that up. It's pretty incredible that he's able to get away with something like this for this long. I mean, I would tend to believe that if we lived in a world where, justice in this country of justice was really real and everybody was held to account under the law, Cash Patel would have already been gotten for that. So, it's just very interesting. So I see this, two-tier system of justice not only is extending to these rich, powerful, elite people, but also the public officials who are protecting them, right? And in reality, they should be held liable and responsible in the same vein, along the same lines. To me, it's like if you're knowingly covering up and protecting for these people on a moral basis, it's really, when it comes down to it, no different than perpetrating the actual crime. And as we've discussed, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that had the DOJ appropriately handled this situation back in 2007, when they had a 53-page draft indictment with a accompanying 80+ page memorandum, points of law and fact, with all the co-conspirators, if that would have really been done and handled appropriately, these victims from '07 to 2019, probably could have saved all, or, maybe some of these other elite violators would have been out there still doing it, so we can't really say for that. And maybe probably are other people similar to Jeffrey Epstein in many ways doing that, right? But still, it's, we know, at least in our country, he did a lot of damage, a lot of harm to people. And I certainly feel, based upon, what we were looking at, that the DOJ was looking at, or what we understand that the DOJ disclosed they were looking at, yeah, that should have been done. I think there's no question that they obviously bear a lot of the responsibility for a lot of the other victimization going on. And remember, we read yesterday, it was in the DOJ report, actually. Remember, they admitted that, Jeffrey Epstein, because he was not really put into any kind of what we would call prison, he did some, what I call halftime at the county jail, where he's on work release. He was able to go and not only continue to live his lavish lifestyle, but he was also allowed to go and reoffend. And that's exactly what he did. And the DOJ admitted it, and so, so I give them that. Look, they at least admitted that they knew that he did and continued to do this, while they haven't obviously stepped up and accepted responsibility for that in any real way. I'm starting to believe, after I watched Pam Bondi today, and Acosta, when he stepped down in 2019, I guess it was, as Trump's Secretary of Labor, because of the media pressure on him through the Miami Herald. I mean, the more and more I think about it, the more I think that he's actually one of the people in this that has a little bit higher level of integrity. I think he does really feel bad for what he did. And I'm not, again, we're going to be speculating possibly till the last days here, what was it that, and obviously, it's my belief, and I think a lot of people here, that Epstein was involved with intelligence, many different intelligence agencies at that. And so it appears that some way, somehow, those forces got to these DOJ attorneys and got to the state attorneys. And I don't know if they were put them under duress, or was it a promise of, moving up the ladder, or what it was. But, they were able to secure, and Epstein hired really good lawyers too. And that's one thing I wanted to bring back up today before we kind of talk about this hearing. I spoke yesterday about the non-prosecution agreement and the fact that, they didn't have to do this, but the federal government, the DOJ, allowed Epstein's attorneys to put in there this civil restitution provisions, basically. And what they did is they made Jeffrey Epstein basically admit civil fault in the non-prosecution agreement. So that way, when the girls would go and later file a civil suit, they wouldn't have to litigate whether Jeffrey Epstein actually did this, whether he was at fault. Basically, what it said, to the best of my knowledge, is that when the girls go to file suit against Jeffrey Epstein under this federal statute for civil damages, it would be as if he had been convicted for that 53-page indictment in federal court. And so, this was, and I got to admit it, a very, very intelligent move by Epstein's attorneys. This was actually very brilliant in the most evil and twisted way. It was very brilliant because, remember I said yesterday, what that did is that it made it any victim that allegedly had seen that non-prosecution agreement, okay, they could always come back and say, because they saw that they were going to be entitled to money, that it made them basically elaborate or build upon or be untruthful or make the severity of what he had done to them more severe. And so in that way, they were like, don't do, that way you can't show it to them, because if you show it to them and then they show up at the state court sentencing hearing, right, then, they can be impeached, which means, calling into question their credibility by invoking that MPA to say, oh, well, you saw non-prosecution, you're going to be entitled to damages, right? And that, the worse that you say that he did, the more damages you might be entitled to. And, the more crooked thing about that is, well, they had already really taken care of that within the MPA, because they limited the types of exemplary or punitive damages that the girls could get. So like, even if they were to get up there and make it something that it's not, that had already been neutered in the non-prosecution agreement too. Just very, very backhanded, crooked stuff going on there, again, to prevent justice from being done. And, they also hid evidence. Even the attorneys, the DOJ obviously isn't the state prosecutor, but acknowledged and was okay with the state prosecutor not disclosing to the state judge the true nature and extent of everything that they and again, the purpose of that was to not block the state prosecution agreement from going through, because anyone with a half of a moral, no, 1/100th of a moral compass and a half of a brain can look at that and say, this is in no way justice in any real sense. Okay. And so there was an active, and again, I think some of it was probably Epstein very smart and playing it that way. And then the DOJ, look, they certainly could and let's not forget this, that any time during that whole thing, they could have just dropped all of that and gone to the grand jury, got an indictment and tried to convict him for all those. And so, the fact that these civil remedy provisions were in there in the grand scheme of things is really meaningless. So I think that there also was a certain level of collusion with the DOJ. Okay. So this wasn't something that they got tricked into or anything like that. They went with the program. Okay. And again, it's very disturbing. Obviously to me, I think y'all would probably agree. It's pretty damn disturbing. What was I going to say? Oh, one other thing. I was able to confirm through these documents I've been reading that the Department of Justice did the non-prosecution agreement had a confidentiality agreement. So they agreed to keep this all confidential, right? Which again, admittedly, I don't know necessarily if that's, normal practice, but it just seems in this instance, anytime you're trying to keep secret serious substantive allegations like this against a person and really a whole network, I don't think that that's good form in any degree. And I think what we're seeing now is the backlash from those types of decisions. So one thing I'll say is, and all the parties, I think, are guilty of this. And I think this is really a testament, ladies and gentlemen, of why we need to really, really back up from these labels of left, right, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. The politicization, right? Politicizing this whole Epstein thing, that was made very clear to me during this hearing, is that, and it's guilty of both sides, because even the Democrats, right? I mean, I think they're doing the right thing and trying to get these files released and stuff like that, but they do kind of, they're pandering with theatrics, and in a way, look, I think everyone in that committee hearing needs a lesson on decorum, because they're constantly going back and forth and talking over each other. And, Congress, we're having a hard time in Congress having a civil conversation amongst adult professionals. Something's wrong, right? Something's very wrong there. The polarization in the system has reached fever pitch in that scenario. But right, they're also politicizing it, and one thing I'll say about them is they're politicizing. It's like, they act like, why are we even going into this now? Because Biden had all these years. He could have gone into it. So I'm sitting there thinking, so, okay, is that what it is? It's like, because Biden didn't do this, now it's over with. These people just need to be let go. Is that what they're suggesting? I mean, because that's kind of what it sounds like to me, is that because Biden or these other administrations didn't do anything about this, we should just let it go. I mean, is that what they're suggesting? Because they never really finish it up, right? They just like, well, you had Merrick Garland in here, you didn't ask him. Okay, fair enough. And I'll say the Democrats, most of them did accept responsibility for that, so kudos to that. But still, it's like, what does that mean? And again, let's remember that, because I'm not trying to make this Democrat or Republican. It doesn't make it two shits to me, right? I just want justice for these victims. And I definitely want these people who are doing these heinous crimes with children and et cetera, they need to be held accountable for it, right? Because if that's the kind of shit that was going on behind the scenes in America, we're going to only be as good as that, right? We're only going to be as good as that. And it doesn't matter whether it happens behind closed doors or not, right? Because that's the energy, right? Because these are the elite billionaires, apparently, that own all these large corporations and businesses, public officials, stuff like that. Those are going to be the people that we're out here, supporting through making purchases, right, of products that we probably have to have every day. And so again, we're unwittingly supporting that type of energy and conduct, and we're going to remain as sick as we are right now if we don't root that out in due time. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to look real quick before we go further and see if we got any good comments, messages in here. Actually, all y'all stuff is really good. I must say that. Miss Susan says, "Hey y'all, I'm actually on today. It's going to be frustrating as hell." Lizard, good to see you, man. Good to see you. I hope everyone's having a good day today. It's a bunch of cowboys running the place at this. Snoops Massey said that this cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it. He rejected Bonnie's attempt to deflect by asking why he hadn't. He did, yeah. Massey got in his feelings today. It sounded like he'd been his voice was like kind of hoarse too, like he had been like getting into it with somebody or something. But he was really fired up. I don't blame him. And we're going to talk in just a minute about some of this pretty heinous stuff that he revealed as far as these redactions and stuff. It didn't take them long, apparently, over there at the DOJ to realize real quick that these redactions were very much done inappropriately. And I mean, let's face it, illegally, right? There was a law that mandated this. One thing that I had, I sat here and read the law to y'all, the Epstein Files Transparency Act the other day. But I forgot that not only does it require for them to release the name of these perpetrators, but they're supposed to also provide like a memo or some type of documentation as to why the Department of Justice hasn't either begun or initiated some type of investigation or going after these people. I believe that's what he was also referencing there within it too. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But pretty heinous stuff. It's like, God, just the fact that they, there's that one document, right, that they mentioned where it has like 30 victims' names. There's like 31 or 32 victims' names, like one of them's redacted, just a whole list of them. And we'll talk too. And just the information that they did release was a lot to where people can identify them, know where they're at. I think there's been threats, like obviously the media has been contacting these people. It just very bad. Oh, and also too, apparently some of the victims had not even, told their entire families about some of this stuff. It's that, and again, one thing I'll say is I'm not going to sit here ever and predict or call or try to, comment upon how a victim like that should act. And we do across the spectrum, right? Some victims are really adamant about being out there, being, and God bless them, being vocal. Let's have, but some of them aren't so much. I mean, and I'm not in any position here to sit there and call judgment upon that. You know, God bless them. I hope they stay safe. Obviously, based upon how some of these other people who've spoken up, how it's turned out for them. I mean, I understand they probably have serious reservations about their safety at this point, and so that again just goes to underscore, for me anyways, how heinous it was to release those names like that. And we hear excuses. We hear, oh well, we only had 30 days. Well, that's true, but you took more than 30 days. Today it came out that, and I don't think we still have the exact number, but there were something like 1,000 attorneys or something like that were just tasked with like taking Donald Trump's name out of it, redacting it. And it's like, okay, if you can dedicate those resources to that, which they weren't supposed to do, there's just really no excuse that these names were released. There's just, for me, there's just really not. I always want to try to believe that people, wake up to try to do the right thing every day. I'm having serious reservations about whether that's at the very least Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, Cash Patel, for sure. I'm just there. That's where I'm at with it. And again, it doesn't, and again, I'm not, this thing has gone on for 20 years. It passed when 07, when all this came to the attention of these authorities, any person that stepped into that seat past that didn't do anything has a piece of this. Okay. Has a piece of this. Democrat, Republican, it does not matter. This should have been handled appropriately really from the start. But with that being said, it seems to me that they knew back in 07 that Jeffrey Epstein, they probably, I mean, come on now, they had to have had a good idea that this was going to continue the way that we know now it did. Maybe they didn't realize the extent, but they certainly should have known that this was not going to stop. And as we've discussed, the likelihood that what happened really empowered these people, both in the atrocity of the acts, the number of people involved in the acts, the number of victims. I think it probably empowered these people in all those directions. Yeah, it's just terrible. I hate that we're having to sit here and talk about this. And, I do feel that, let me say this. I hope the House flips at midterms, not because I give two shits whether Democrats or Republicans, whichever party. To me, they're really just one and the same at this point. But to the extent that I believe that the Democrats might get up there and actually like do impeachment proceedings and stuff like that, because I think these people need to be held accountable at this point for what they've done. And again, I don't say that because they're Republican or working for Donald Trump. I say that because of what we've had to sit there and witness them do, including but not limited to perjure themselves right in front of Congress. And it's like, if we can't hold people responsible or accountable for lying in front of our legislative house, our national legislative house, then what can we enforce anything? In the answer to that is, oh yeah, we can enforce a lot of stuff against poor people, against regular Americans. These people, yeah, oh yeah, we can enforce that, to the T, letter of the law. The Department of Justice don't play. But when it comes to these elite billionaire PDF files and public officials and stuff, yeah, no, law doesn't apply to them. So yeah, I hope for our sake, for all of Americans' sake, that something gets done about this, because yeah. Let's see. Greg, did you see Ian should ingrained web? It's awesome. If you could explain that again, Lizard. Sorry, I a little bit confused there, Lizard. That's a lot to process. I totally get it. Oh, talking about the procedure. She accused Massey of having. Oh, that is right. Yeah, good point, Snoops. I actually had that on my outline. She called Massey having Trump derangement syndrome, and called him a failed politician and a hypocrite. And so this will be interesting in the comments. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think Massey has Trump? I don't even know what Trump derangement syndrome is. I mean, I guess I have an idea, but that's nonsense to me. Do y'all think he's a failed politician or a hypocrite? I think on the hypocrite part, Snoops, if I remember correctly, there was some kind of act that was, or a law that was presented had to do something with like cyber, maybe CP statute, a child porn statute or whatever that I guess Massey was one of the dissenting voices on for the hypocrite. What do y'all think? Does that make him a hypocrite, failed politician? I certainly don't think so. I mean, in my view right now, and again, I don't know a ton about Massey, admittedly. Just what I've seen of Massey has really been this whole Epstein thing. But I can just say, from my impression of Massey, he seems to be someone with some integrity. And to the extent that he's bucking Trump and bucking whatever the movement that Trump is now leading, I think that like MAGA and America First, I think has been unfortunately horribly divided on these things. To the extent that Massey is bucking against that, I mean, to me, that shows that he's actually a successful politician. If we consider standing on principles and values to be successful as a politician, which I would hope that we would consider that a good attribute of one, I think he's pretty damn successful. I think I said on a live stream the other day, to be honest right now, Massey is like one politician that I think would actually motivate me to possibly go and vote for president. And again, that's just me. It's based upon what I've seen in the Epstein files. I don't know a ton about his otherwise political career. So perhaps those statements are a little bit short-sighted, but I just wanted to express my feelings in those regards for whatever it's worth. Let's see. Where to his lawyers stand in this whole files process? Can they be compelled to give evidence, or would client privilege kick in? Oh, I guess you're talking about Epstein's attorneys. Man, that is a very good question. I've never looked into it. Like, does the attorney-client confidentiality survive death? Hey, the beautiful thing about the internet. Yeah, let's see. It says yeah. Hold on just a second. And again, just for all, let me put a disclaimer out there. This is from ChatGPT. But a lot of times on basic questions, like there's more simpler type questions, they give a pretty decent answer. It says yes, and not only does it survive, it usually survives indefinitely. Attorney-client privilege does not die when the client does. So, unfortunately, I maybe there's some type of process where we can, a motion could be filed to waive that in this instance, in certain exigent circumstances. I don't know. But general rule, apparently, Lizard, that's what it is. Snoop says, exchange escalated into back and forth shouting match. Massey later describing Bondi's answers as kind of crazy to me. Yeah. And claiming he caught her red-handed. Okay, yep, sure enough. So there was that there. And actually, was it Massey? I think it was in regards to. It was the politician, the Liu guy from California. He was the one who. It was the issue with. Okay, the limo driver. Okay, so I think this has to do with the one victim that ended up, quote unquote, committing suicide or something like that. But most people don't believe that's actually what happened. But I think it was a limo driver that had heard that this victim state that she had been, assaulted violently by both Epstein and Trump. And that was, I think, an FBI report that was redacted a lot, that was in the files. In Liu, I think what his point was is that he's claiming this right here, I guess also with some of all the external circumstances we're aware of, credible, evidence or information that obviously Epstein was doing these things with other people. And so, yeah, he claimed right there in the hearing that, he thinks that her lying about that she perjured herself. So that's very interesting. What do y'all think about that evidence? That'd be glad. I would love to know that. What do y'all think about that evidence? Do y'all think that that document itself is enough? And so let's put aside the stuff I've pointed out in these court filings, stuff like that. But like that standing alone, do y'all think that document represents credible evidence sufficient enough to warrant at least a different response from Cash Patel, Pam Bondi? At these hearings. I'd love to know your thoughts. Uh, let's see. Emoji for question. For questions for Greg, so it's easy for him to see when he goes through. Oh yeah, if y'all wanted to do that, if obviously I haven't reached the super chat level yet, but with that being said, if y'all could please subscribe, as many likes, stuff like that as possible. I will say this: I'll make a commitment to y'all, like as far as I can, even when I get to that level, as much as I can. Answer everybody's questions, not just super chats. I'll be glad to do that. I think obviously there's going to come a time where there's so many damn people. I'll have to, I mean, I hope it gets there. Anyways, let's do this. Y'all are here early. Y'all are my ride or dies from day one. I'll put it to you like this. From now on, anytime I'm going to be doing a live stream, if y'all want to email me questions when y'all see the topic, if y'all want to email me questions, I'll also bring those into the live stream with me. So that way, you don't have to, if you're here every day, you don't have to super chat every day to get a question that I'll answer. I want to obviously answer as many as possible. And then I'll also set up a cheap, like membership thing too, where we can do like members live streams. Like I would imagine they'd go something like this actually, where a little bit more intimate and we can, get more questions answered where people don't have to like super chat every time they want me to acknowledge or respond to them. Let's see. Representative Lou said Bondi lied under oath, but that's protected under speech and debate clause if it is knowingly false. That's a good question. I mean, they are under oath, right? They are under oath, and so I'll look into that though. That's an interesting point that you made. So I don't want to shut you down there and say you're wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe the speech and debate clause does have some type of mitigating effect on perjury, otherwise perjury in front of Congress. Okay, so yeah, so Ms. Bebout here brings up a good point too, and I think I stated this yesterday, is that the allegation now, what's the allegation? Massey and Rokana at their press conference after their Monday trip to the DOJ, they stated that basically a lot of the documents as received by the DOJ were already redacted. And so I think a good portion, bulk of them came from the FBI. And so that makes you wonder whether, Cash Patel and that's the thing, with all the stuff Cash Patel said, if we're kind of thinking back, well, they received a lot of these documents already redacted, probably from the FBI. Well, did Cash Patel and them like start from day one redacting these documents before they knew they were going to eventually have to turn them over to the DOJ to be released? It's a very good question. And, look, at this juncture, I'm not going to put it past the DOJ saying that they got it redacted, but didn't get it redacted. And I'm just based upon the level of credibility and the responses that we've received to date from pretty much all the officials, parties involved. So yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. Patel said he himself did not review the 302s for credible evidence. It was given the recommendation by intelligence agency. Oh, surely not. Surely wasn't given any kind of recommendation from an intelligence agency. Thank you, Lisette. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. I'll just speak real quick. I think it is fair for creators, like me and others, to like want to try to support ourselves and stuff like that. And we do put a lot of money up, but then trying to balance that with, keeping everybody involved and things of that nature. And so, it's one that I'll just let y'all know. I do think about that. Like I'm thinking about this ahead of time. It's because I love all my ride or dies, my initial ones. I don't want any kind of, monetary restrictions in the future to, prevent y'all from being part of all this moving forward. So and if y'all have ideas, please let me know. But I've definitely been thinking about it and, want to make it good for everybody. And, and I'll just let you know, my other law Patreon that I have. I do civil rights work related to freedom of religion and stuff. And so, you know, I've always made my memberships, my basic memberships to my Patreon for free, because I'm talking about mental rights and liberties, which we do a lot here too. And so that also factors into, my move to want to put a paywall or anything in front of the information. And so just throwing that out there. Anyways, let's go. I got some more notes here. Let's see. So Lex Wexner, or God, did I say that? Is it Les Wexner? The guy from who's he with the Victoria's Secrets? He was one of like the main people, from my understanding, that was funding E-Teen and involved in all these things. And so there was a let's see. So Massey, so he showed the email with the 30 victims who have been disclosed. Terrible. He revealed that Wexner had been redacted, and that he was, okay. So apparently the FBI had done a form or some type of document basically naming him as a suspect in all this trafficking. So again, another thing, if that's true, and I'll go back to make sure I'm not misunderstanding what was being conveyed there, but I think the document that he was referencing was basically a report or something from the FBI that was indicating that they surely thought that he was a suspect in this trafficking. So again, another point where Patel could probably, that could probably be used to say, hey, Patel, you perjured yourself here. And so, and one thing that, we got to remember this too, is that, because I know a lot of time we feel powerless and we feel like, or at least I do, that, oh man, they're going to be destroying stuff. We're never going to get to the bottom of this because, they're going to redact or destroy it before we ever get a chance. But we always have to remember that there are the victims, right? And that's a great thing. It's not a great thing, but that's a foundational thing here, is that we always have the victims who were obviously firsthand knowledge of this stuff. They know who these people are. They know what they did. And regardless of whether they disclose it in these files or not, they know. And this is speculation, but it's one of those things. They know that at the end of the day, no matter what level of obfuscation or cover up that they try to do with these documents and evidence, these victims are still alive, and they're survivors, right? That's what they're really been referred as survivors, and they sure are. And so it makes me think, was them releasing this information about these victims, because they names, addresses, telephone numbers, email addresses, was that to identify them so that way, somebody could go and try to handle them? And I know that's very morbid. I know it's very morbid, y'all, but at this juncture, I don't think that that's too crazy or outside of the realm of possibilities that we have to consider here. God, should that be true? Man, it was confirmed today that a lot of these victims, have been getting harassed by the media, by people that are trying to harm them. And, outing them like that was definitely not helping or supporting them in any way. And that's one other thing I wanted to bring up is, Pam Bondi was given, at least to the point that I saw the hearing, right? So I haven't seen the whole thing, but the portion that I saw, which was probably maybe half or a little bit more, she's given several chances to apologize to these victims for releasing their names. She didn't do it. Instead, she got very combative. I think it's because she gets so upset that it's the Democrat people who are asking her to do it. She gets so upset and combative at them. Her ego's not going to allow her, at their request or at their behest, to apologize to these victims. And so, we really got to sit back and look at that and say, well, what does that tell us? Is this something with Bondi's character? Does it have something to do with how highly politicized and polarized that this has all been? Or is it a mix of these things, many different forces going into the way that she's approaching it with these victims? And, the victims all raised their hand. They said that they had not been contacted by the DOJ. They raised their hand that they did not feel supported by the DOJ. And one of the Congress people, and I apologize, I just haven't really been keeping up with that part of the House that much. But one of them said that it's very important. These types of crimes are probably some of the most least reported ones. And I think we can start to understand why. And so, but it just underscores the importance of the way the public perceives the DOJ's, either reluctance or impetus to treat these victims in a way that protects them, shields their identity, seeks justice for them. It's very important that they have that image, right? Because if not, more perpetrators are going to get away with it. And so, in that way, this is much bigger than just this Epstein trafficking ring, right? In that way, it's much more bigger than just this. Um, People who are victims who are watching this, who might have been victims of other people, particularly if they might have been a victim of another rich and powerful person, that I understand if watching this, they're reluctant to come forward, and so the whole cycle and system just builds upon itself. It snowballs. And so that's why it's very important, I feel, to have these types of conversations, to support politicians like Massey, Ro Khanna, and on both sides of the aisle, bipartisan issue. And it's very strange to me that this Epstein Files Transparency Act went through Congress with, I think, only one missing signature. I mean, I think there was only one vote against it. Yet here we get to these proceedings in these committees, and like Rep. Jordan, he didn't even mention Epstein Files as far as I can remember in his opening statement. I don't even think he mentioned it. And you could tell a lot of the Republicans wanted to focus on other issues. And hey, look, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong about that, but let's be honest. If there's one issue, if you have she's not over there testifying every day of the week. So it's like, if you have her over there, the way I feel about it is that this definitely should have been made, top dog priority issue, in the sense that take care of all that first. Like, they should have sorted out all the Epstein stuff first and then gone into these other ancillary issues. And I think that too, because it also gets confusing a bit when we're jumping between these issues, things like that. And, maybe it was that kind of intentional. I don't know. But, I consider, as far as the interest that Congress has in talking to with the DOJ right now, this file release should be the paramount issue. And it largely was, right? I mean, not to act like, Epstein Files was, relegated to the back seat there, but, there was also a lot of talking about some other ancillary issues, which are, in my view, not nearly as important as what we're looking at today. And a part of that too is just how systemic this whole thing truly is. The fact that it started in 2007 with some, according to the OPR, poor judgment by Acosta, but we all know what it really started with as far as the conduct of the DOJ and its officials. And yeah, it's been systemic in the sense that it's just continuously, nothing's been done. Even the Department of Justice's own internal investigation failed to hold any of its attorneys with any real accountability. And no presidential administration, Department of Justice on either side of the aisle has really done anything. And now, one heinous thing I'll say, and I think this is self-evident for all of us, it's super heinous how Trump and these others, did they gain political points by promising that they were going to release these files and seek justice? You think they gained a few points with that? Let's think about it right now. Do you think, had Trump stated that he wasn't going to do anything with these files, or if we knew now that what he was going to do back then, do you think he would have got elected? Okay. And so then to get in office and completely flip the script, well, and look, let's be honest. It seems to me, based upon the polls and numbers that I've seen, he's certainly paying for it. He's certainly paying for it. And unfortunately for the Republican Party, I think they're going to pay for it too in the midterms. But, with me, it's both sides of the aisle. So just because maybe some Republicans will lose some seats doesn't, tell me exactly that for sure justice is going to be done in this instance. Again, we, as a country, as a society, really need to reevaluate, in my opinion, how we judge, judge politicians before we go vote for them. personal character, unfortunately, while I think normally it shouldn't have to be that big of an issue for a politician who otherwise has made a commitment to be professional and serve their constituents, seeing the degree of moral failure that we're seeing here, in my opinion, yeah, we kind of need to make that part of our deal moving forward. I know I certainly will, and to be honest with you, I might actually start to go vote. And a number of reasons for that, but I think that now, my vote will count in a real way now, because we're at a point where, an inflection point where, the D versus R dichotomy isn't as poignant. And, if I feel like I'm going out there with other community members and we're all making this commitment to voting for who we feel is, morally correct and going to do the right thing, that interests me. That's an election that I want to participate in. You know what I mean? That's definitely something I want to participate in. Let's see. Pam Bondi has become one of the most discussed human beings I've ever seen. I certainly, thinking about it, I would say maybe Jeffrey Epstein was probably a bit worse, but again, good point. And like I said at the beginning of this, people who cover up and for these types of things, in a sense, are endorsing it. So when we look at these people, I mean, how much difference is there between someone who actually committed it and someone who's helping cover up what they did? And in a sense, in that, accommodating future infractions or violations, right? So I get it. I get why people would have that characterization of her. Let's see. Representative Clay Higgins. Clay Higgins voted against. Oh, is that the person who voted against the release? So I guess Clay Higgins was the one who voted against the Epstein Files Transparency Act release. I don't know if that's true, what the stated reasons were, but I'm having a hard time right now thinking of some legitimate I mean, hey, here's one thing I'd say. If they said because there was no real enforcement mechanism put in the law, right? Because that's what we're seeing, is that there was this law that, mandated you're supposed to do this, but like within the law, there really is no meat in the sense that it gives them the ability to start meting out punishment and stuff like that. Now, obviously, when they're coming to court and perjuring themselves, stuff like that, go down that road for sure. But like the act itself doesn't have any kind of built-in provisions to, ensure compliance. So yeah, perhaps somebody could have voted against it for that. But again, I think given the situation and the need for immediate action on this, I don't know if I would have ever let that definitely hang it up. And they can be amended, right? These laws can be amended. Massey and them could propose some enforcement provisions tomorrow. Now, whether it would go through or whether, I mean, right now what we're looking at is a complete political mess with it. It's unfortunate that it's risen into the realm of all this politicization. However, with Connor and Massey, we see both sides of the aisle coming together on this issue. So in that way, it has it's just so crazy, right? Because if you'd asked me yesterday, not having remembered a lot of the prior hearings, I said, oh, it looks like people are coming together and stuff. But then when I see, in the committee hearing today, it still seems like there's some divide on the issue. And I don't know. I want to hope and think that a lot of these Republicans who either didn't discuss the Epstein or their only statement was, well, you didn't do this during Biden administration. I hope that deep down they don't feel that that's material enough to stop what we're doing and just throw it aside because Biden didn't do nothing about it. I mean, I hope that that's just them paying, lip service to Trump, the political party. And I think it probably is, right? Because if we think that all these members did vote for the Transparency Act, surely they're not going to throw it all out just because, or throw out their efforts to help, do this because Biden didn't do so, or you didn't ask these questions to Merrick Garland. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the biggest problem with candidates is the money that backs them. Yeah, and I'm going to do a whole. We'll do a live stream about this here soon about the APAC issue. I think that you know APAC money should be probably one of the number one priorities of voters going into this election. And there is this AZA PAC, the AZ APAC, the anti-Zionist APAC or whatever. I'll do a show on them too. I haven't had a chance to look too much into them, although I have seen it. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I like that idea. So we'll talk about that. But yes, the lobbying, ladies and gentlemen. I work in the a lot of my work that I do legal wise deals a lot with like the controlled substances laws, the FDA, things like that. And so I've had a front seat of looking to see how the pharmaceutical companies have affected our, basically our health and safety. Um, and it's terrible, right? It's obvious that with a lot of the medications and things that we get, it really has nothing to do with what is the best medicine, what's going to help you. It's with what can be patented and what can be monetized. And that's why we see some of the most dangerous drugs out there, like fentanyl, and maybe Trump switches schedule. I don't think so. I think it's still scheduled too. And look, here's my deal: is that physicians, anesthesiologists, they used fentanyl every day, very, very safely, right? And so there is that double-edged sword, but I could go on forever. But just to note that, yeah, lobbying is a major issue in many ways, and I think the APAC lobby is probably the worst lobby that we have. And obviously they haven't had to register as a foreign lobby for forever. There's just a lot of problems with it. And to the Charlie Kirk incident, I think we're seeing some effects of the as crazy as it sounds, I think we're seeing some effects of it there too, with their potential involvement in TPUSA and pushing that. The way I've kind of seen it is that, TPUSA was America first. They were on the front of that kind of movement. And I could see why people in APAC and affiliated people would want to keep really close tabs on that America First movement, want to keep close tabs, because if it goes too far over American First, well, that might be an issue, and that's just me musing, speculating. We're going to be doing some more digging and discussing, but just wanted to kind of put some of my thoughts out there for y'all. Let's see. Yeah. So again, the DOJ even meeting with these victims, how can they get up there and say that there's no credible information implicating any other co-conspirators when, if this is true, we're kind of led to believe that they really haven't even had communications with any of the victims, eyewitnesses, right? Who can implicate these people. Okay. So again, saying what they said just in that context also makes it look like it was probably perjury, right? Or willful ignorance in some sense. They brought up the Maxwell receiving favorable treatment in the federal system after meeting with apparently Todd Blanche, went to whatever women's prison. I think she's in Bryan, Texas. Apparently went there and spoke with her. Next thing you know, she's in a better facility. She's up here claiming the fifth, and obviously everyone speculates that what it was is he was there to try to secure her commitment not to speak about President Trump. We don't know that. We don't have any like hardcore evidence, but that's really kind of the speculation out there. Let's see. Random Doc Nobody. Can we get out of the blackmail? That is cool. So good question. Random Doc Nobody. Can 47 Republicans get out from under the blackmail that is controlling them, or are they all benefiting too much financially to do what's right for America? That's a very good question. I'll say I saw Massey's interview the other day on a podcast. It was a very good interview podcast, but he tried to say he didn't think that the blackmail thing was, I I guess as we've all been thinking, that it wasn't like one of the primary mechanisms that he was using to exert control or influence. I don't agree with that. I certainly believe in a number of things tell me that, but the fact that he had all these cameras everywhere. Then I'm thinking about the emails. I was actually looking at some of the pictures in the files the other day, and he had servers, like he had, it's like if you go to a law firm or something, see these huge servers that they have, like he had those at his house, and I'm pretty sure it was to store the data from the security cameras and stuff like that. So to me, that just reeks of someone who's grabbing dirt on people to exert control over them. And so, with that being said, if we make a commitment to just not elect people who are so heavily entrenched with AIPAC, maybe we'll be able to, let some of those politicians go without, AIPAC or whoever coming out and outing them. If that's the case, if they do have blackmail on them and that's what's controlling them, and they're connected with AIPAC like that, well, maybe if we out them because of the AIPAC connection, we can save them the embarrassment maybe. But then again, you're like, well, what if it's a crime? What if it's like with a minor that they do? So then, yeah, we have to think about that. There's possibly a bunch of sitting congressmen and senators right now that might be Supreme Court justices. I don't think we can rule much of anything out as far as the breadth of who is in these files and what it actually is that they're doing. Because we're looking for names and references in the emails, but what if there were no email? What if it's in the videos, right? I mean, because let's realize this too, is that you got to know that some of the people who are working or dealing with Epstein would have been smart enough not to memorialize any of this stuff into emails like some of these other retards were. Surely there's tons of people like that. And so in that instance, we would probably, the only evidence we would have is through an eyewitness or victim or, some videos, right? So those videos, they don't want to disclose. I mean, I don't want to be the one to have to go and go through them and see, but somebody surely does. Somebody surely does. Oh, Bonnie. Oh, that's Greg. I was prescribed a high dose of Xanax for panic attacks for 18 years. Took me 3 years to slowly taper off. The worst experience of my life. Yeah. When I was in my addiction, Bonnie, I never had gotten addicted. Those are a class of drugs that they call benzodiazepines. Very dangerous to get addicted to them because coming off is similar to alcohol. You can have seizures, right? And they never tell you this at the doctor's office, right? I don't ever tell you that. But yeah, you can definitely have seizures. I've watched maybe a handful of people right in front of me in withdrawal seize out from that. So very, very dangerous. Exactly. And so these are the types of things I'm talking about with the lobby, how dangerous these lobbies are, because and they really are what run our legislature, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, because they want laws to be favorable to them. Naturally, when we're talking about consumer things, right? Obviously, a profit-making company's motives and their goals and agenda are contrary to ours in many ways, which is okay to a certain degree. But when we come to safety, whenever obviously, it takes a lot of money and time and effort to make sure that things are safe and that people are properly informed of them, stuff like that. Well, obviously, they don't want to have to do all that. It costs money. It cuts into the profit margin, and so they're paying these campaigns for these legislatures to try to wiggle out of those things in these laws, right? So, yeah, I completely get it. And we'll cover a lot of that. It seems like there's some interest there. So we can talk about some of these lobbying issues because I could definitely go on and on about it. Let's see. Liberty Lockdown used to. Let me say, I love Liberty Lockdown. He's one of my favorite YouTube channels in this sphere. Something about I just really like him. He seems pretty trustworthy. Liberty Lockdown. I hope I get to meet him sometime. He posted a really good breakdown a few hours ago, including Lutning. Yep, sure did. I saw that this morning. Usually, to be quite honest with you, every morning I'll catch a video of his. I'll leave him a comment, and we go back and forth a little bit. He's awesome. Ooh, Susan Lissette was on Percocet and morphine for years, finally off it all. Yeah, that's good, Susan. I was there too, opioid for many years, so been there. Um, no good. And, you know, the whole OxyContin thing, I could go on it. And maybe I'll do an episode about that sometime, because I've got tons of personal experience, and that is also a very good, um, I guess, instance of where, you know, corporate greed and money got into the hands and the pockets of these regulators, FDA, DEA, and we ended up and you know, I think a lot of us would be missed if we didn't realize that the even the fentanyl epidemic that we're experiencing today is in large part a byproduct of the Purdue Pharma debacle in the late 90s, early 2000s. Um, let's see. Okay. So yeah, so you know, one of Bondi's kind of first statements when she started getting really combative, because she gets combative just about every time a Democrat asks her a question, uh, it was heinous. Where she said, you know, we're worried about the Epstein files. We should be talking about the stock market. The Dow Jones Industrial is up so many points, and it's a record. And Trump's greatest president at this, you know. And what does that say? What did it say to me? And what does it probably say to everyone else in the world? Well, that America values that bottom dollar more than it values the sanctity of our children, essentially. You know, essentially what it said to me, which is terrible. Pardon my language. It's pretty fucking terrible of a statement, I felt. When I showed up to listen to this hearing, I could give two shits less about the stock market. Fuck the stock market. Because I think I wouldn't be amiss to state that it's a lot of them people that are responsible for what we should have been there talking about today, not the fucking stock market. And and the vape. Okay, that's another thing. She was real. I mean, when they brought up the vapes, oh man, she was, oh yeah, vapes is gonna be bipartisan. We're gonna do all this work on vapes, and like, I mean, I'm not saying vapes are the greatest thing. I mean, you see me, right? I'm not saying they're the best thing ever, but you know, would you rather see your child smoking a vape or be in the presence of one of these elite pedophiles? You know, ask yourself that question, and then say, Pam Bondi, what should we be sitting here talking about today? You know, and just for her to keep saying that Trump is the most transparent president in history, you know, I just, yeah. Anyways, whenever you have 1,000 FBI agents or people redacting your name out of some files, that's not being the most transparent presidents in history. Just want to leave that there for you. And then one of the congresswomen brought up the email that we later found out that Massey and Khanna went and found out was from some sultan from some country, talking about some kind of torture video or pornography. Yeah, like, and that was another instance where they're like, you know, look at this, like, this is not credible evidence that there's, you know, other people involved in this shit, like, and that you need to go follow up on. I mean, there's no telling how many email. Oh, Dubai. Oh, I don't know where that person is the sultan. As a matter of fact, I didn't even catch the other name other than it was a sultan. But that was mentioned. Let's see. And yeah, and just generally these, I mean, the survivors, they're protecting the perpetrators. They are protecting the perpetrators, essentially, you know, and outing the victims, putting them in danger. And, you know, what is the effect? I mean, I definitely think that in a roundabout way, as I've stated, I think outing the victims was a way of intimidation, to be quite honest with you. I think it was a way to intimidate them, to discourage them from coming forward. Because, you know, Pam Bondi said that too many times. She said, well, if people have credible information, we're waiting for them at the FBI. We're waiting for them at the FBI. Okay. So based upon the conduct of this DOJ over the last week or so, releasing these things, what victims want to go talk to you? What victim wants to go talk to you? I mean, they might as well just go on their Twitter account and just announce it there. I mean, might as well, right? With the way that they release those names, might as well. Terrible. Steve Tisch, they brought up that email that had to do with some underage girl in the not returning to the Ukraine. Again, just by way of example of that there's very credible evidence of very high people had been involved in some illegal behavior. Let's see what else I was going to say. Prince Andrew, they brought and the Prince Andrew thing seemed to get to her too, because they pulled up those two pictures of Prince Andrew, where like one of them where he's like pretty much on top of some underage girl, pinning her on the ground, and asking, why didn't you investigate this? You go after them, and it really got her in her feelings. And me, it's like when I see those things, when I see people getting real defensive in their feelings about it, I think it's because you're over the target, right? And that's kind of like with the Candace investigation and stuff like that. When we see TPUSA, these people start getting in their feelings and attacking her, the way I kind of read into that is that, hey, we're getting over the target, right? So wanted to point that out. That was kind of all I had for my notes today, and I guess I kind of I could have moved this back and maybe watched the whole hearing, but I saw enough that I felt like, based upon our prior conversations coming into this, that there would be enough to kind of jump in here and discuss. And thank y'all for the comments and stuff, all the support's so much appreciated. It would be interesting to know how many victims sign NDAs as adults for cash outside the judicial system. Does not excuse criminal charges, though. That's a very interesting question. So yeah, no, I mean, if they paid people money and had them sign an NDA, and I think I gave this opinion already, that shouldn't prevent them still from later going and speaking with authorities, because again, you can't contract to do something illegal. And so if you're contracting to try to keep someone hush from the authorities, that's obstruction of justice. You're basically entering into an illegal contract. Now, granted, the victim could potentially get in trouble too, right? But in a proper system, that wouldn't be the case, right? That would be excused, given immunity for that, in order to come forward and tell the truth and do the right thing. So I hope, any victims who are in that situation hear what I'm saying and go find them a good local attorney and go talk about it, because that should not stop you from coming forward with legitimate, credible information. And I'd just be willing to bet, maybe I'm crazy, but willing to bet the ones that they're paying money to sign an NDA, those are probably telling the truth, right? They're probably telling the truth. And so those victims especially would be, we want to definitely hear from them if they're out there. Says JP Morgan has paid out a lot of victims too. I think I heard about that. I know that they were at least financially involved with Epstein. When Jasmine Crockett is one of the few making any sense on the e-files, that's when we're in trouble. Susan, wow, that's amazing. I'm leaning that way too, looking at natural remedies. Well, if y'all like natural remedies, I mean, I'm kind of in that world too. Looking more towards the earth-based stuff. And yeah, once I cracked the book on it, I won't go too far down this tangent. But once I started cracking the book on it, you start to realize that, yeah, a lot of the stuff that we're given as like medicine, remedies and stuff is actually not really the best stuff. That actually nature for a very long time has provided us with very effective remedies for a whole host of things. So, man, one thing I will say, I read the couple documents here. I'll just mention before we shut her down. I read through this was the 2019 New York indictment, Southern District of New York. This was the indictment that they locked Jeffrey Epstein up for, which eventually led to his disappearance. I guess I'll just leave it at his disappearance. Just very funny. In one part of it, and if y'all watched my video last night, the Supreme Court even cited this indictment for the proposition that there were co-conspirators, people who Jeffrey Epstein was obviously trafficking to. And they state it in one part, and as we know from 2007, the acknowledgement of co-conspirators, people that, were he was trafficking to, has been acknowledged since 2007. There has not yet been one name, because it's like even this indictment, it mentions it, but no one else is indicted. Well, why is that? And why has that, again, it's all one big cover up, right? Because that is the $1 million question at this juncture is, why has the existence of conspirators, people who were involved in violating these young women and other minors, why have they never been charged too, despite it being not only known but actually officially recognized in court documents by both the Department of Justice and the courts? Why has no one else been indicted? And, I think that is why we're having so much trouble getting them released, because of how deep and how high up this really goes, ladies and gentlemen. And again, I don't think I'm amiss by saying this goes all the way to the top, to the very top. I am a firm believer in that, and I respect other people's opinions who might not hold that opinion. But that's where I'm at on it. I don't think that this level of cover up or of obstinance that we're seeing from DOJ would be possible without support. Not only, and when I say highest level, y'all know I'm not just talking about Trump, because Trump is not the highest level. We're talking about the CIA and these other pieces, that level of support, right? And it's so terrible that I'm saying that. That's really who's running the show. And with that being said, man, let's just hope and pray that we can, and maybe that's another thing too, ladies and gentlemen, maybe, a way that we, looking into the next elections and election cycle, can we get a president and a Congress that might be committed to downsizing or nipping in the bud some of the intelligence agencies that are going on? I mean, who was it? Eisenhower that warned us of this, like way back when, after World War II, right? And now we're definitely living in the world that was the picture that he painted. We're living in that now, and so we surely didn't heed that warning when it was given. But maybe we should definitely start heeding that warning now and taking corrective action to the extent that we can. Ian Carroll does good summaries and cites Whitney Webb a lot. Ian's new. Yeah. No, I'm a very big fan of Ian. And I have not had a chance to check out his research tool. Oh, one thing cool that I did find y'all would be interested. It's I think it's indexofepstein.org. Is like it's a specific research tool for the Epstein files, where they've done their best to kind of sort it out and make it easier for people to search names and different types of documents, photos, documents, pleadings. Might be something that y'all want to check out. Again, I think it's indexofepstein.org. I checked it out, surely. And to be quite honest with you, though, I've really just been going through the files. I've been able to identify what the general categories are in these different sets. And I've been going down one by one for a lot of these things. I found the area where it's like that where I started the other day with the 2019 opinion in order. And in that's a lot of the court documents, because I've been interested in the court documents for their effect, right? Because in these court documents, when certain facts are concluded, things like that, that's pretty firmly established. And so them trying to wiggle out of those facts is in my opinion, they can't. That's my opinion. Of course, some people might say, oh, well, just because, they alleged it back, DOJ alleged this back in 2007, picked up by the courts, but people can try to weasel out of anything, right? Especially good lawyers being involved in it, right? I don't know if Kash Patel is going to be that slick or not, but that's why I went there, and I'm still looking. I'll still be bringing stuff to you. Let's see. So I was listening to Barron's live stream, last one he had, and he mentioned that, and I had kind of missed this even though I was listening, but Tyler Robinson's attorneys in that last hearing did mention something about the online theories and videos and stuff. And so I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to do an episode. I might even publish a video with my thoughts on those statements, because they do differ a little bit from Barron's. And so definitely going to be talking about that. I'm trying to think what else I was going to bring to y'all as far as moving forward discussion wise. Probably won't do a live stream tomorrow. We'll probably skip tomorrow, come back Friday strong. I'll put a good one together for Friday too. Again, working with different formats. I want to try to make it as engaging and fun as possible. Considering the topics that we're having to discuss, yeah, we need to do something to kind of liven it up, because I feel like just the bearer of bad news here for everybody. And I don't want to be that. I want it to be, everyone's involved and having fun as much as we can. Let's see, Greg. Let's see, what did you say? I bet Ian's web tool could help you with your research. You can privately load documents and research them locally. Okay. What's the definition for treason again? Mandelsum just resigned in UK for giving government information to the individual in the files. I mean, my understanding of treason has always been basically selling out or having an allegiance to another country, and releasing information, doing something to undermine the United States national security or interest in some way. And I know that's kind of a very out of there probably definition, but that's my understanding of treason. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I guess in the files they saw where this dude had done something that qualified as treason. Well, good. If that's the case, that's what should be happening. That's what should be happening. If there's credible information in these files, I mean, the information in these files are enough where an investigation should be occurring. At the very least, picking up the phone and calling these people. By way of example, Tucker Carlson, y'all might have seen that video where he talks about Pizzagate. It's actually with Ian too. They're talking about Pizzagate and the fact that they saw a email from, I guess, Epstein's urologist to him talking about his erectile dysfunction pills, and tells him, once you're done, wash your hands. Let's go get pizza and grape soda. And even Tucker, he's like, can we pick up the phone and call this dude and tell him to speak into the mic very clearly? Like, what did you mean by this? I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice. And, I hate to say this, but it's like, even if they just did something, making phone calls, doing some type of investigation, even if it's perfunctory, even if it was some kind of pro forma, I mean, I hope they wouldn't, but they would be dodging a lot of the criticism that they're getting now. And so it just makes you think, if whatever force there is preventing them from even doing that, man, what is this? What is this? The plot thickens every day. Anyways, let's look real quick. Coffeezilla has been doing research too. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to go to the store, get ready for dinner tonight. I got a couple client calls I got to make, and I'll publish some videos. We'll probably skip live stream tomorrow. We will be back on Friday, and looking forward to it. Obviously, if y'all have anything in specific, I mean, y'all are catching me in the comments. So if y'all have something specific that you think of, kind of in the universe of what we've been discussing, you want me to kind of dig into and talk about, just let me know, comments, and we'll see about getting it onto the lineup. And yeah, anyways, much love. Thank y'all very much. Yeah, thank you, Lisette. Again, everybody, thank y'all. And they're worried about opening Pandora's box, but that's where we're going to show back up Friday, and we're going to keep opening it up. So, all right, man. Love y'all. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see y'all again on Friday, and we'll chat with you in the comments. Peace.